Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. And to be clear, I'm not going to ask any questions of this witness because this witness has revealed that she has no intentions of answering questions. But instead, I'm going to ask some very basic questions really quickly of my colleague, Becca Ballant, if she will answer right or wrong, raping children.
Wrong.
Right or wrong, killing random citizens.
Definitely wrong.
Right or wrong, enriching yourself as the sitting president of the United States.
Definitely wrong.
Okay, thank you, because I probably never would have got that with our witness. Our witness who somehow is a lawyer but does not understand how it works with witnesses. I'm not really sure what law school she went to and what all kind of cases she tried, but typically when you come into a space and somebody's a witness, then they sit there and they answer questions.
Good evening. Tonight, we look at a fundamental breakdown of the rule of law within the highest office of federal law enforcement. We are going to examine the testimony and the records of the United States Department of Justice. We will see how an Attorney General uses the power of her office to protect the powerful while ignoring the victims she is sworn to serve. We will look at the forensic evidence of a massive cover-up regarding the Jeffrey Epstein files. This is about the evidence. This is about the law. This is about the accountability that must follow for those who treat the United States Constitution as a secondary concern to political fealty. Let's play this clip.
Instead of asking questions. And then we also have this objection that we use as lawyers called non-responsive when a witness fails to actually answer the question. But nevertheless, let me address the survivors, because that's exactly who they are. They are not victims, they are survivors. Let me say thank you for having more courage and moral clarity in your pinky fingers than the entire Department of Justice. We are currently the laughing stock of the world, partially because of the failed leadership within the DOJ, as we see kings and queens falling everywhere around the world. But we don't know the basics of right and wrong in this country, because it's not about partisanship. And that's why I applaud Thomas Massie, because he's the only person on the Republican side that has a backbone and knows how to stand up to corruption. But nevertheless, let me keep going. My Democratic colleagues have been attacked this entire committee hearing. They have been lied on. And frankly, the American people weren't looking for that. They were looking for answers about the corruption that they see coming from this administration. In the written testimony of this witness,
the Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, appeared before the House Judiciary Committee and made a series of claims regarding the integrity of her department. She claimed that she has returned the Department of Justice to its core mission and ended the weaponization of justice. That is a lie. The evidence proves the exact opposite is true. The evidence proves that under her leadership, the Department of Justice has prioritized the protection of the President of the United States over the prosecution of predators and the fulfillment of a lawful congressional subpoena. Let's play this clip.
Of this particular witness, she stated that when she took office, she had two main goals. The first was to end the weaponization of justice, and second, to return the department to its core mission. Not only have you lied about both, you've intentionally done the exact opposite. You're spending more taxpayer resources arresting journalists than you are prosecuting pedophiles and creeps. In fact, your boss, the President of the United States, stated that this administration, quote, took the freedom of speech away. And at your direction, DOJ has arrested Don Lemon and Georgia Fort. And I might add that y'all actually had a judge that rejected y'all for trying to arrest Don Lemon before, just like the grand jury rejected y'all as it relates to Senator Kelly, just like a grand jury rejected y'all as it relates to Senator Slotkin, just like the case against Tish James was dismissed and the case against Mr. Comey was dismissed. I completely don't get how it is that you're sitting at the top of DOJ, because you don't seem to be good at your job. You're spending more taxpayer resources arresting these journalists. In fact,
let us define the lie. Attorney General Bondi stated in her written testimony that when she took office, she had two main goals. The first was to end what she called the weaponization of justice. The second was to return the department to its core mission. She further represented to the public that an Epstein client list was sitting on her desk for review. She claimed the Department of Justice was operating with a commitment to transparency regarding the Epstein files. These statements are false. The Department of Justice has intentionally done the exact opposite of its stated mission. It has prioritized obstruction over justice and corruption over the law. Let's play this clip.
we know after Georgia Fort and Don Lemon were arrested, we know that there were homes of journalists that were raided. We know that threatened prosecution against students protesting your actions and forced tech companies to remove apps used to track ISIS activities. But let's circle back to you protecting pedophiles and creeps, because I want to talk about the president and his possible involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, I don't know what the president might have done with Jeffrey Epstein, but unlike this administration, I believe that facts matter. So let's talk about the facts. Fact number one, Donald Trump is one of the most named people in the Epstein files. At least 5,000 files contains more than 38,000 references to Trump, his wife, or Mar-a-Lago. Fact number two, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell made young girls available to Trump on multiple occasions. For example, according to this file, Ghislaine Maxwell presented a young girl to President Trump who spent more than 20 minutes apparently flirting with her. Here's another example. This shows notes from FBI investigators that describe Jeffrey Epstein transporting a victim to Mar-a-Lago to meet with President Trump, where he bragged to Trump that, quote, "This is a good one." Now, I'm not saying that the president is a pedophile, but there is a lot of evidence in these files that suggests that he's very close friends with a lot of men who are pedophiles. What's crazy about all of this is just that this is a big cover-up.
We will now look at the forensic evidence. This is not speculation. These are the facts entered into the record. Fact number one, Donald Trump is one of the most named people in the Jeffrey Epstein files. There are at least 5,000 files containing more than 38,000 references to Donald Trump, his wife, or his Mar-a-Lago estate. Fact number two, the files show that Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell made young girls available to Donald Trump on multiple occasions. One specific file describes Ghislaine Maxwell presenting a young girl to the president, who then spent more than 20 minutes flirting with her. Fact number three, FBI investigator notes describe Jeffrey Epstein transporting a victim to Mar-a-Lago to meet with the president. In those notes, Epstein is recorded bragging to Trump that the victim was a good one. Let's play this clip.
And this administration is engaged in it. In fact, this administration is complicit. But there are numerous others, like how the DOJ is attempting to obstruct justice in the investigation of the rogue agents who have murdered American citizens, or how the DOJ seized voter data from Fulton County in an attempt to steal the 2026 midterm elections, or how federal agents have Tom Homan on tape accepting a bribe and your agency killed the investigation, or how your agency is ready to give the president a $230 million payday, which is unconstitutional. The Constitution is clear. The president shall not receive any payment except his salary while in office. The fact of the matter is that you will be remembered as one of the worst attorney generals in history. An attorney general who has prioritized obstruction over justice, corruption over the law, fealty to the president over loyalty to the Constitution. And Mr. Chairman, I will yield.
Gentlelady yields. Gentleman from Missouri is recognized. Excuse me, gentleman from Kansas, the Attorney General, former Attorney General, Mr. Schmidt is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and General Bondi, thanks for being here. Did you have anything you wanted to say before we talk?
I do. Thank you, Congressman. Thank you, my friend, for many years. I find it interesting that she didn't even want to try.
The evidence of a cover-up is found in the numbers provided by the Department of Justice itself. Last February, Attorney General Bondi claimed the client list was on her desk. Shortly after that, the department released only 341 pages of documents to a hand-picked group of right-wing influencers. Most of those documents were already public. In May, Bondi claimed the department had tens of thousands of videos of Epstein with children or child porn. 1 month later, the director of the FBI, Kash Patel, contradicted that claim. By July, the department issued a memo denying the existence of a client list and stating that no further disclosure would be appropriate. Let's play this clip.
Congresswoman Crockett to ask any questions, because she certainly did not condemn her leader, Hakeem Jeffries, for taking money from Jeffrey Epstein after Epstein was convicted. And I will be brief to give you your time, Congressman. This is what she didn't want to talk about. Texas, from Cuba, convicted, homicide, arson, weapon offense.
Convicted. So what we talking about? Convict some of these perpetrators that rape these women that are sitting behind you, that you refuse to even acknowledge they are here.
Time belongs to the gentleman from Kansas.
Mr. Chairman, could I have a few seconds back to make up for the yelling? Thank you. General, did you have anything further to say?
Texas, convicted of homicide. Cecil Joseph from Dominican Republic. Texas, convicted for kidnapping, rape. Khalid Khan from Afghanistan. That's why They want to talk about Epstein and not what's happening in their own states.
The department has also failed to comply with the Epstein Files Transparency Act. The law required the department to produce all materials to Congress by December 19, 2025. Public reporting shows that the materials produced by that date amounted to less than 1% of the total files. The department has provided shifting figures regarding the volume of records in its possession. They first announced they found 1 million additional documents. 1 week later, they were reportedly trying to recruit staff to review 5.2 million pages. Then, they told a federal court there were more than 2 million documents. This is the forensic evidence of a department that does not know what it has or is intentionally misleading the public about the scale of the evidence. The department has also used excessive redactions to hide information. They concealed names and photographs of potential co-conspirators. One specific photo of Donald Trump and Ghislaine Maxwell was redacted in its entirety. These redactions have prevented survivors from searching the documents for information related to their own cases. However, the department mistakenly published the name of at least one survivor who wanted to remain anonymous. They also redacted the name of Leslie Wexner, the founder of Victoria's Secret, as a co-conspirator, and only added it back after being caught by members of the committee. This brings us to a power and control analysis. Why would an attorney general engage in this behavior? The evidence shows a department captured by the executive branch. The attorney general is operating as a defense attorney for the president rather than as the lawyer for the American people. This is about the protection of political allies. Representative Jasmine Crockett noted that the attorney general is spending more taxpayer resources arresting journalists than prosecuting pedophiles. The department has arrested Don Lemon and Georgia Fort. They have raided the homes of journalists. They have threatened prosecution against students protesting the administration. This is a mechanism of control designed to silence dissent and investigation. The control extends to the financial enrichment of the president. The Department of Justice is reportedly preparing to give the president a $230 million payday. The United States Constitution is clear on this point. It states that the president shall not receive any payment except his salary while in office. By facilitating this payment, the Attorney General is prioritizing fealty to the president over loyalty to the Constitution. This is a total obstruction of congressional oversight. By refusing to answer questions and refusing to look at the survivors present in the hearing room, the Attorney General is asserting that the Department of Justice is above the law. We must also analyze the power dynamics regarding Ghislaine Maxwell. The Bureau of Prisons, which the Attorney General oversees, transferred Maxwell to a minimum security prison camp. This transfer happened shortly after Maxwell gave a favorable interview about President Trump to the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche. This transfer appears to violate Bureau of Prisons policy given Maxwell's status as a federal sex offender. It is a display of power used to reward those who protect the president's image. Let us look at the strongest defense argument. Attorney General Bondi and her supporters argue that the department is focused on public safety and the border. During the hearing, Bondi repeatedly deflected questions about Epstein by holding up photos of migrants. She listed specific individuals: a man from Cuba convicted of homicide and arson, Cecil Joseph from the Dominican Republic convicted of kidnapping and rape, and Khalid Khan from Afghanistan. Her argument is that these crimes are what the American people care about, and that the Epstein investigation is a distraction. We will now dismantle that defense using the law. The defense is legally non-responsive. In a courtroom, a witness cannot refuse to answer a question about one crime by pointing to a different crime committed by someone else. The existence of criminal activity at the border does not negate the department's legal obligation to investigate sex trafficking and corruption at the highest levels of government. The law requires the Attorney General to prosecute all federal crimes. It is not an either-or proposition. Furthermore, the Attorney General's claim of focusing on core missions is belied by her department's failure to apprehend the suspect who placed pipe bombs near the Capitol. Her defense is a political tactic designed to use the fear of migrants to shield the powerful from the consequences of their own alleged actions. Now, for a legal education in plain English, the Department of Justice is not a branch of the White House. It is an agency within the executive branch that is subject to the laws passed by Congress. One of those laws is the Epstein Files Transparency Act. This law unambiguously required the department to produce all responsive materials to Congress. This includes internal communications, emails, memos, and meeting notes concerning the decisions to investigate or not investigate Epstein and his associates. The department has claimed it can withhold these documents based on what they call the deliberative process privilege. This claim is legally meritless because the Act specifically mandates the production of those internal records. Furthermore, Congress has the power of the subpoena. The Committee on Oversight and Government Reform issued a subpoena to the Department of Justice last August. A subpoena is a legal order. It is not a request. Failure to comply with a subpoena is an insult to the legal authority of Congress as a co-equal branch of government. When the department produces less than 1% of the required files, they are in flagrant violation of the law. They are treating a legal mandate as a suggestion. It is my professional judgment that Attorney General Pam Bondi has demonstrated she is unfit for the office she holds. An Attorney General must have the moral clarity to distinguish between political loyalty and the administration of justice. During the hearing, she refused to acknowledge the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's crimes, who were sitting directly behind her. She refused to apologize for the department's failure to protect their identities and for the delays in seeking justice. She characterized the request for an apology as getting in the gutter for theatrics. A prosecutor who cannot look at a victim is a prosecutor who has lost the ability to serve the public interest. She has prioritized obstruction over justice. She has overseen a department that arrests journalists for doing their jobs while failing to comply with transparency laws. She will be remembered as an Attorney General who chose fealty to a single man over loyalty to the United States Constitution. The authority for these findings is supported by a significant stack of expert and institutional voices. This is not a partisan observation. The demand for accountability is signed by the ranking member of the Committee on Oversight and Accountability, Robert Garcia, along with Eleanor Holmes Norton, Stephen F. Lynch, and Raja Krishnamurthy. It is joined by Kwesi Mfume, Chantel M. Brown, Melanie Stansbury, and Maxwell Alejandro Frost. It is supported by Summer L. Lee, Greg Kassar, Jasmine Crockett, and Emily Randall. The list includes Suas Subramaniam, Yasemin Ansari, Wesley Bell, Latifah Simon, Dave Min, James R. Walkinshaw, Ayanna Pressley, and Rashida Tlaib. These are members of Congress exercising their constitutional duty to oversee the executive branch. Even on the Republican side, Representative Thomas Massie has stood up to this corruption and blasted the department for its redactions and failures. Institutional accountability is now the only path forward. The Department of Justice has shown a complete lack of good faith in complying with a bipartisan subpoena. The Federal Bureau of Prisons has allowed for the irregular transfer of a convicted sex trafficker based on a political interview. These are institutional failures that require immediate correction. The Committee on Oversight and Government Reform must immediately convene a hearing to examine the botched release of the Epstein files. They must compel Attorney General Bondi to provide testimony under oath regarding the actions of the department under her leadership. The department's actions have been described as inconsistent, evasive, and misleading. They have heightened suspicions that the department is covering up details of crimes to protect the White House. There is evidence that President Trump pressured members of his own party not to reveal names of Epstein-connected abusers because his friends would get hurt. The Department of Justice cannot be allowed to function as a shield for those friends. We must look at the procedural consequences. This is not about hope. It is about the process. There are pending investigations in the Epstein case, but the department has not revealed who they are focused on. The Committee on Oversight is planning to take up the issue of sanctuary jurisdictions in a markup in the coming weeks, which is where the policy debates regarding the border should properly occur. However, the legal obligation of the department to comply with the Epstein Files Transparency Act remains a separate and urgent matter. The next step is a hearing with the Attorney General to shed light on these questions. If the department continues to withhold documents based on privileges that the law has already stripped away, those claims will not survive first contact with the courts. The failure to produce materials is a violation of a law enacted by Congress. The procedural consequence of continued noncompliance is a referral for contempt of Congress. The Department of Justice is currently the laughingstock of the world because of this failed leadership. The process of restoring the integrity of the department begins with a full accounting of every page of the Epstein files. The law requires it. The survivors deserve it. The American people demand it. I am Lawrence O'Donnell. Good night.